Welcome to the Rest Round with Butch Hiles and Gary Hashman.
Hey everybody, it's another episode of the Rest Round with Butch Hiles and Gary Hashman, and today we've got Jordana Randlett and her mother Regina with us today. They've been nice enough to stop by our school at Ecos in High Point, North Carolina, but Jordana's, and I'm always afraid that I'm saying it wrong. It's Jordana, right?
Yes.
I keep questioning myself, but anyway, she came up with this idea to do 100 academies around her area. And so she's been on this tour. She's at 28 stops now, getting ready to go to their 29th. And we happen to be one of their stops. And I was actually kind of excited. I seen her on TikTok and I thought it was an interesting thing. You're 17, right?
Yes.
And so how long have you been training? Any kind of martial arts, but especially Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Martial arts as a whole, about 6 to 7 years, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu about 3.
Okay. And where is like your home academy where you train at the most?
I primarily train at Checkmat Charlotte for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. And who's the instructor there? Just so we can give them a shout out.
Michael Allen. He also goes by Cornbread in the MMA world.
Nice. So the idea for 100 academies, what kind of spurred this on? What kind of spiked your interest in that?
Where would you say we got this from?
We were in the car. We were talking about her future because she was getting ready to graduate. She was actually supposed to graduate at 14 and a half, but because of COVID, we held her back. And she got to go to prom and everything. So she was getting ready to graduate, and she's like, Mom, more than anything in this world, I want to teach martial arts. That's my dream. That's what I'm passionate about. And I said, okay, I agree. But with an IQ like you've got, maybe we should take some time to think about it because you have all these scholarship opportunities. And we're trying to kind of help her figure out her future. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, why don't you visit some studios and, make sure this is what you want to do. And that could be your senior project. So I said, you could visit maybe. And she goes, 100.
I ended up doing some research on Google, looking up a general idea of how many studios were around. And we got 86, and there are more studios opening up and even more people recommending studios that were never even online for being in North Carolina. And so we were like, why not? Let's aim for 100. And if we have to travel outside of North Carolina, we'll do it.
I gave her the states that are bordering.
Yes.
We'll go to Virginia, we'll go to up north we'll go to, Tennessee,
South Carolina.
If we happen to be on a road trip, we can hit a few out in California or Arizona or wherever. And, if it happens, it happens. So, but yeah, she's the one that said, aim big, Mom, I want to go 100. I said, all right.
So I noticed that West Virginia wasn't on that list. Do you guys have something against West Virginia?
Nope. It's one of those places that we plan on, if we can hit it, we're going to hit it. My grandparents actually had a place in Galax, Virginia. So I've been all through Virginia and then West Virginia, Yeager, Bluefield, all those, Logan County, everywhere.
We weren't giving off a very specific list of locations, just any bordering states.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I knew actual geography, I would know if we were a bordering state, but I'm guessing we're not. But I'm not from West Virginia. I'm from Ohio, which is still no excuse to not know geography. But yeah, anyway, I know. How long does it take for Gary and it doesn't take that long for us to see each other, right?
3 hours and change.
Yeah.
Like that.
And so that's why I would think that we're a bordering state, because that's not too bad for me, but I'm sure that it's not. So I'm just playing with you. But if you ever did come, 3 hours is not that bad. That's where Gary's at. I'm sure you're not exactly where he's at, but I think that's a pretty cool idea because, some people have done something similar, not that exactly, but meaning like a guy named Mr. Jiu-Jitsu that we know. he likes to hit open mats everywhere, right? And he doesn't have like, I'm sure he's probably over the 100th thing, right? But he does, the fact that it's not written in a goal like that is a different thing, right? He's doing it more for fun. I like the fact that should be exciting for you, really. I think it's kind of neat, get to meet new people. What a better, what like a way to kind of get to know people and to do something that's unique, especially when you're like 17 or that's some crazy, awesome stuff, really. I mean, so really, that's all I can say. Like, I can't put into words how cool that is. That's awesome.
And it's kind of come full circle. Like last night, we were able to visit a studio, and it just happened to be that one of the girls that is training there is the same girl that she competed against in Tap Cancer Out last year when her back was broken and she didn't know her back was broken.
The lady was very nice at the tournament, and seeing that she was at this location was very comforting to have that familiar face, to already kind of know the feeling of the students from that location. It was great.
She's a great girl.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the beauty of this whole thing, right? Is learning or meeting people that are great people, right? It's hard for people that don't do this to understand, like it on paper doesn't make sense. Like you got two people that are trying to break each other's limbs or choke each other or do all these things that on paper sound crazy. And then when you tell somebody that you guys did that to each other, then it's very comforting to see her, like a normal person, be like, what are you talking about? Like what, like this doesn't make any sense. But it goes back to kind of what we're saying, like when, especially for guys, like there's always that thing where, these people get in this fight after school where they're like, meet me in the backyard at 3 o'clock. And then they do. And like, maybe they had a hard time all year. And then as soon as those guys fight, they're best friends. So like, there's something that comes with, I think, jiu-jitsu and the fact that, first of all, it's not a real fight, right? I mean, even though it's a competition, it's still a competition, right? But it's the fact that we share a moment that's so pure, and there's nothing else like it, right? Like, so you immediately form a bond with that person because you guys just put like your heart and soul and athletic ability and your mental ability and everything all into that one thing. And for those 5 minutes or however long it was, nothing else matters. And so of course you're going to have this thing. And again, we understand it, but like, it's just, to me, it's a beautiful thing. Cause like, for example, my wife, she kind of gets it, but she doesn't do jujitsu and she doesn't actually spar or do any of that stuff. So for her to understand, like, she just thinks we're all crazy. Like, it doesn't make sense. Right. So I always think that's funny. Like when we get to talk about this and then you hear other people, they're like, I just don't get it. Right. I'm like, well, you're never going to get it unless you do it. Right. And that's a beautiful thing. And I guess, let me say this before I ask you a couple of questions I want to ask you before Gary does. I can't go on without not hearing the back-breaking story. It seems like something that popped up that I need to know more about.
So last year in, I want to say like November, December, I started training at a location.
The year before.
Yeah, or the year before that, I started training at this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu location. They did all like competition. I absolutely love what they did. And so every weekend I would roll with them. And it happened that one weekend in April, in an open mat, a girl came in and she looked older. She looked older than me, of course, wearing a blue belt. And my instructor had taught me up a little for my size, my age, and wanted me to partner with her. So she runs up to me. Now my instructor's not in the room currently, but she comes up to me and we go to roll. And the first thing she does is hip throw me and body slam me like a wrestling WWE move. And some people in the room noticed it. They're like, hey, we don't do that. And I noticed later that day, I was like, wow, my back hurts a little, but I'll take ibuprofen and walk it off. I'm perfectly fine. Well, later on, I noticed that there's still some pain. It's not going away. It's been there for like a month.
Went to massage therapist.
I went to massage therapist, and I noticed it even more after she worked out, pulled muscle, and I thought nothing of it. Ibuprofen, keep going. I then competed in Tap Cancer Out and at the time my in-house tournament at my old studio. And then I also did prom twice in like 6-inch high heels. I graduated high school, and I want to say the week after graduation, I was taking a Taekwondo class, warming up, and something popped. And everyone around me at that studio knows I don't do pain. Like, it doesn't affect me. I'm automatically limping, like I can't walk, it hurts. I had to be laid down in our black belt room, and I was like in tears. I had to call family to come pick me up. And then later that week, we take me to the doctors. They x-ray it and they're like, hey, you have a fracture. Like there's a break here. How have you been doing all this? How have you been going? Like they didn't know how I was even walking into their office. And so they're asking us all these questions. Well, how did it happen? Do you know when? Do you know why? Like, what happened?
We knew.
And we thought for a minute. It took us a second to really think about it. And then we're like, oh my goodness, that body slam. That's the only thing that it could have been. Turns out the girl was 14 years old. She came from an MMA background, had done jujitsu for like a year at max. And she came in to show off. And so
With a blue belt.
Yeah, with a blue belt that she, as you guys know, should not have had at that age. And ended up breaking my back in the process.
Well, that doesn't sound fun. let's get that out of the way, right? Yeah, that's pretty rough. Do you know, so I'm in the medical field. Do you know what, did you like get a break in your vertebrae, or is it like spinous process, or?
It was a pars fracture on like the L4, so right in like the center of my back.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a very good one. But luckily that'll heal, but it's still not, and and all this sounds great because I'm saying it, it's not me, right? So it's like one of those things like, well, you're young, you'll be fine. Like nobody wants to hear that. Right? But like it's so much better that it's not me or Gary because we're old and brittle. So it's all right, but yeah, that's not good. And
high pain tolerance too. When she was like 8 years old, she broke her arm in 2 places, and she got up and was just like, she cried for a second. She's like, ow, that hurt. And then she was like, I'm fine. I'm fine.
awesome.
A month or two went by, and she just kept, yeah, Mom, my arm still aches. So I was like, you know what? We're going to go take you to the doctor. I don't want to go. We're taking you anyway.
Didn't the first guy do it wrong and they said there was nothing wrong with it?
Yeah,
right?
we took her to one doctor. He said there's nothing wrong. She still complained, took her to another doctor. They did an x-ray. They said she broke both bones in half completely, and they've healed already. And she's not complained. And I was like, no, she just said it ached a little bit. But I think the doctor,
the most I had to do was wear a brace for like 2 weeks, but my pain tolerance is absolutely, as I like to call it, whack.
Yeah, the doctor said she's got one of the highest pain tolerances I've ever seen.
I'm usually fine at jujitsu. It's when I get home and then I'm like, everything hurts. I'm sore. And then I asked my wife, she can get me like the Tylenol. And hey, I don't think I can get up the stairs, so can I sleep on the couch tonight? Just grab me a pillow.
I noticed that like with also with natural flexibility, my elbows bend a little backwards, my fingers bend till they almost touch my wrist, like foot ankle locks don't bother me. And so it's that double-edged sword of not only am I flexible, but I also have no pain tolerance to the point that both of those things could hit at once and something could break easily. And when people do things like arm bars or wrist locks, I have to watch them. I have to see them. So I know when like, oh, my elbow's going too far, because if I don't look at it, something will snap because I do not feel it.
She's learning to tap.
Well, that means you have a good instructor and you're smart, because that's like we have that problem here. Well, leg locks, for example, most people don't feel until it's too late, right? And so we always have to have that conversation. Hey, it's like we're not fighting the UFC. This is practice, and like I get it that you might say you don't feel anything or it doesn't hurt, but like what if it goes too far, right? And then then we're gonna have some other problems. So, and it's like, and it's probably, I don't know how you are with your ego and stuff. I'm assuming that it's fine, but that's hard sometimes too, right? To say like, okay, you're like, yeah, like I don't feel anything, but okay, you win, right? It's kind of tough, right? But it's like, it's one of those things like, listen, man, this is just for like, we're learning a skill. Like if you're getting into a fight or the UFC, then yeah, you can not tap and do some other things. But for now, let's just make sure, like you said, like you don't feel it, but we don't want it to break. We don't want to go any further. And we need to be in a place that protects us in that way, including good instructors, including you. But it's funny because that is a good story. But what I was thinking, like the whole time you're saying that story or telling that story was like, man, she really just blew up my whole conversation about how jujitsu, we love each other and, you know, do all this stuff. And you're like, yeah, this girl came in, just rocked me. I was like, man, what a really down after that good speech I gave, but that's okay.
Well,
You have to assume that this girl came from an MMA background. I think her father
okay,
owned
I'm just
an
playing.
MMA school. He had been training her since day one to just cage fight, and
she was from a completely different state as well.
Yeah.
She was down for like a competition, I think, and
just decided to come for an open mat.
was
and
there,
yeah. So it wasn't like she was in the jujitsu world, because it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. Because you know, anytime she's done jujitsu, I see them, you know, they bump, they you know, tap, and then they
nice
fight
to each
they
other.
get up, they hug, and you can see that camaraderie. But I guess being a mom from a martial arts background myself, you know, a lot of moms are like, how can you let her do that? And I'm like, I've got 12 years under my belt as a child and teenager, and then as an adult. I know what goes on behind the scenes. It's not like I'm putting my baby out there to be abused.
There's a lot more kindness in arts than some parents especially realize.
Mm-hmm.
And this girl had come in, she looked angry, she felt angry. There was no like green flags about her almost. And so I was very hesitant.
One big red flag, huh?
Yeah. I was very hesitant to work with her, but I was thinking, no, my instructor, he would not bring someone in, like, not to diss him, like he was not in the room at any point that she was fighting. And I had no clue that they really didn't know each other at all. So I'm thinking, oh, she's from a Brazilian jiu-jitsu background. I didn't ask any questions.
And that was the problem.
That was
she
a big
didn't
mistake.
ask any questions.
I didn't.
Well, and I would also say that kind of brings us to a kind of a big point. You traveling around 28 academies now. You know, you stopped at my place. Obviously, we both know Danny and Vicky. You stopped over at Motion Works, and so you've traveled. It sounds from what I'm hearing that this was one bad experience in what is hundreds, maybe thousands of people who you've met. And I think that says something for jiu-jitsu, because even like Butch has been doing jiu-jitsu for, we'll just say a long time. I've been doing
probably
jiu-jitsu
before you were born, since the 90s, which I only think about when I talk about or talk to people your age. I'm like, yeah, let's just not talk about it. But anyway, yeah, since I'll tell you when I started, 1997. Like, when were you born, Jordana? Like
2006.
Yeah, so disgusting. So weird.
Yeah, she's younger than my daughter. So yeah, but you know, I've been doing jiu-jitsu, you know, over a decade now, and in my experience, it has been so few people, and not unlike you, everywhere I go, I do jiu-jitsu. Me and my wife have conversations before we go on vacation on how many days I get to do jiu-jitsu at a place. So, and I like, she'll tell me where we're going, whether, hey, we're going to the beach over here, we're going to the mountains over there. The first thing I do is I find out what jiu-jitsu academies are close by, and then I try and hit those academies and see who's got the best schedule for me, because, you know, everybody likes to sleep in on vacation, and I'm always up at 6 o'clock. So I'm like, who's got the 7 o'clock class? But in my time in doing jiu-jitsu, obviously I've met some people that I'm not a fan of, that I didn't like rolling with, and it happens. But I would say almost 99.5% of the time it's been great experiences. And it definitely hasn't slowed you down. That's the thing that makes me happy about it, is that even after that, like you've seen that, like, this isn't all people, this isn't all jiu-jitsu, we care about each other, and the community cares about each other. And so I appreciate the fact that you just kind of okay, I guess somebody had to take one for the team, and you just kind of muscled on.
My very first experience with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was learning under a blue belt, and he had a great class going, great technique. But we had like a young man who was very white belt rage. He was also not fit to work with young females. He was like 21 at the time, and I was 14. He had said something highly inappropriate. And so I was kind of called my instructor. I was like, hey, what do I do? I got the answer of, this is why I don't want women in my class. And so that, and then I've had other experiences where there's like, of course, not some so good people out there, but those do not outweigh the good. My home studio I train at feels like a family. They are kind to each other. They watch for injuries. And at the end of every match, you'll probably get a hug.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, well, this makes me think early on when you said you just wanted to be a martial arts instructor. What do you have a style in mind? And obviously we're talking to you because of jujitsu, but do you like other things? Is that what you would prefer to do, or what is that?
So for about 7 years, I trained primarily Hapkido, Taekwondo, and Filipino, like Kali Eskrima. And so those are some of my favorites. And I love to teach those. But Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is also among that list of, it's like my top 4 out of all the arts I've trained. I love those especially.
It's been a good mix. She's had the competition school with the jiu-jitsu. Checkmat's very competition oriented, but people think, well, this is a hard school. It's,
They're gonna kill you, and
they're
break
gonna
stuff.
But
No.
you meet the most loving people there, and then we've had the experience of when we were going to a home studio here in our own town where it was very family oriented as well, and there was like kids and families, and so we've had both aspects. But I mean, all in all, you can take two very different studios, but you're not going to have those bad experiences. You're going to have the family, these, especially like at Checkmat, the people she rolls with. There's a guy that she met there, and she rolled with him for a year or so, and then he became a good friend of mine. His family is, we're planning to go to birthday parties for his kids, and they're 2 hours away, and vice versa. So I
love that you can gain such a healthy mix and balance of wonderful experiences from not only family-oriented locations, but competition-oriented locations. And having that mix has been great. You benefit from either one, but having both at the same time has been a massive blessing.
So sorry, Butch. I was going to say, so as far as, and we talk a lot about training styles, teaching styles, going to all these academies. What are you finding the biggest differences in academies? And I'm going to kind of narrow it down to jiu-jitsu just because that's what me and Butch train. As far as like instruction, what kind of things do you see that you like? And obviously not calling out your coach back at Checkmat, but like what kind of things work for you that you picked up on this journey? Like, oh man, no one's ever explained it that way, or nobody's ever taught stuff this way. And that kind of works for me. And I would like to see that in instructors. And it doesn't have to be anything that happened at Ecos, because that guy was a garbage instructor.
So something that I do look for in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu studio that I really haven't found, but it's something I look for because I grew up with it, is a curriculum. I grew up training by curriculum and adding more to it, and it's kind of built into my brain to love that setting. And I find that when instructors like explain the same move differently like 5 times, that helps a lot. Like if you get an armbar and you're having trouble with it, and they switch their explanation or like their example, I love it. And family oriented, or not even family oriented, but like not trying to rip your head off in a guillotine choke. that environment is wonderful and definitely something I look for.
As a mom, I think when I go in and you've got like different environments, and as a parent you kind of feel it out. So you know, I usually talk to the other parents that are there, and they're like, you know, my 5-year-old comes here, my 12-year-old comes here, and then my husband comes here. And people are, you know, they want to get to know you, they want to get to know her. They're not like, we want to sign you up here, I need your $200 right now, I need your money, I need your money, I need your money. Because we've only been a couple of places that were like, you know, I need you to sign this, and then every single day I'm getting a text message, you need to pay this, you need to pay this, you need to pay this. And
all we did was sign a waiver.
all we did was sign a waiver, and we explained everything to them. So, you know, every studio, and not that that's wrong, if it works for them, you know, that's great. That, you know, every studio is different. But you know, I like the studios that are like, you know, hey, come back anytime, because then she's going to be more apt to tell people, well, there's this great studio, Ecos, that I went to. They made me feel at home. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, they have an open mat. You should go train there. You should try it out.
Something I really enjoyed that I saw at one of the latest studios I visited was the moment I bowed into the mat, I had like 5 girls my age come up to me, shake my hand, like introduce themselves, ask me my years of training, what all I'm doing. And they weren't looking like, they weren't scouting for competition. They had a smile on their face, like they're welcoming a new family member. And walking into a place and seeing people treat each other like that is an amazing thing. I love to see it.
And I think all in all, we've had, out of all the studios we've been to, there's been one jiu-jitsu studio that was a little pushy about the money. But other than that, like 90% of them have been, man, come back anytime. Mom, you want to come on. You want to bring dad, you want to, you know, bring the kids, you know, come on and try it out.
And I think with the one studio that was a little more business oriented, even then their environment was wonderful. And they were all very kind, and they knew what they were teaching. And, you know, it was a good place overall.
Yeah, so I can't say there's been any bad experiences at any of the jiu-jitsu places we've been at. The only bad experience we've had out of 29 studios that we've actually, was a Jeet Kune Do. We don't talk about that one. That one's been taken care of.
And what I'm noticing too, when you guys talk too, is especially for Jordana, is like you've got a thirst for knowledge, and your mom recognizes that, right? Like rather that school or martial arts or whatever. So you have an outlet to do that, an ability to do that. But you have a both of you guys have a very good also ability to express, you know, things about that in a kind way, right? Like it's tough, right? Like meaning you're going to have some good, you're going to have some bad. It doesn't matter what we're doing in life. There's going to be some good and some bad, right? And we recognize that. But I think the other thing is you can be one of those like harbingers of goodwill too, because you're going to all these gyms and you can like, this is the, like what I think of like, well, that's talking right now is how a gym should act when they have a visitor. Like if I was going to put like a button or like a bow on this thing and say, what are we talking about other than you visiting 100 gyms and being awesome people and doing all that stuff? What can we learn from that? And that is part of it. Like when I listen to what you say, Tom DeBlas is a friend of mine. I think, I don't know if you guys know him, but a lot of people follow him because he writes good and bad about jiu-jitsu. He's very good about just giving his opinion, but it's an opinion that most people like because he got a bunch of followers. But anyway, the point was, I remember one of the things that he said, and if you guys don't know who he is, he has a gym in New Jersey, but he said, hey, when a new person comes in, you need to get up and greet them with a smile and shake their hand because it's hard for them to be there. They're nervous. They don't know what to expect. And, you know, I have that, like, we always joke at my gym, the hardest thing for everybody to do is just get through the door. Like I get emails for 6 months before people come in. They'll ask me every question and then they don't show up. Right. And then, you know, I kind of forget about them and maybe we talk and I just forget. Cause like, if you don't come, like I just forget. And then eventually they finally come and they're like, man, I didn't, this is not what I expected. Meaning they thought they're going to show up and, you know, we're going to be a fight gym and everybody's crazy. Kind of like some of the stories that you said that weren't the greatest, but that's what they expect. Or a bunch of guys with their shirt off. And again, like I'm a guy, I get it. But like, that's the part we're trying to avoid is like, I want it to be a family environment that everybody's welcome to. So not that it's weird that a guy has his shirt off, but if you're two females like you guys and you walk in and you see there's 3 or 4 guys with their shirt off, let's say they're, good shape, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's kind of weird, right? It doesn't mean it's bad, but you're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're fighters, if they're welcoming, what kind of people they are. So again, like that's a small part where I'm like, listen, like, and I'll tell the guys, like, I want you to wear a rash guard. I want you to keep your shirt on. I know that there's a bunch of guys in here, but if somebody walks in, I don't want them to be intimidated or think we're putting off the wrong vibe, because we're good people. And I don't want them just, because I've literally had people open the door, shut the door and walk right back out. I've had it happen, what I mean? And some of it's because like we have multiple classes. So somebody's looking for cardio kickboxing and they walk in the front door and there's, 50 guys doing jujitsu and we look like, they're like, well, I must be at the wrong place. Right. And so I have to run out and catch them. But the point is what you just said, and I don't want to miss that, is that it is our responsibility. Like today, for example, I had 5 or 6 new people come to the gym. They're taking kickboxing, they're taking jujitsu, taking a little bit of everything. And I've had a bad day, what I mean? Like every day my life's not perfect, but I don't want to show that my day sucks when those people walk in, because this is their view of the gym. And again, it's not for money. Like this is not my main job. So I don't want to act like I don't care how my gym does, but it's not, I'm not worried when you walk in the door if I'm going to get your money. What I am worried about is your perception of me and the gym, because I worked hard to make this what I want it to be. So I want you guys to come in and be like, and all the great things you said about everybody else, that's what I want. I want you guys, man, it's a fun, family-friendly environment that women can go to, that young ladies can go to, that young people can go to, and we all feel confident. A lot of people think they're that, but if you're not welcoming somebody in the door, whether you want money or not, like it is a business for some people, right? And just like you guys said, you guys did a great job is saying that, look, I don't fault them for that. That's the guy's job, right? Or the girl's job. That's their job. But at the same time, you need to make me feel like I'm valued and I'm seen and I'm important because I came here. Even if you're a visitor, because let's face it, when you're a visitor, some people might be like, well, look, I'm not getting their monthly tuition. I don't really care about that person. They may think that. I don't think that, but they may. I would argue, look, and that's the person that's going to get on Facebook and said, hey, I went to this gym in North Carolina, I went to this gym in West Virginia. Those were great people. It may not mean much, but it may be somebody might catch this somewhere, right? They might be searching somewhere and they're like, hey, like they said some good stuff or they said some bad stuff. And it's like really important for people to realize that is that perception reality, even if perception is reality, even if 90% of the time, 99% of the time, you're everything that we just mentioned, 1% of the time, if you guys walked in and you didn't feel welcomed and it was a bad night because maybe I'm in a bad mood and you left and you're like, man, it wasn't a good vibe. It's not good for anybody. It's not also good for jujitsu. Like, it's not like I'm a spokesperson for all of jujitsu or MMA or whatever, but like we want people to enjoy this. This is what I want. And that's why we want you on here, because you guys are doing a good thing. And I think that we can teach everybody else something too. Is just like, hey, when people come in, especially, you're 17 or 14, or, some of your other stories, like that's the most important time to feel comfortable, to feel like you can go somewhere and a man, like whether he's an MMA fighter or not, I'm 46, but let's say that you and I worked out together, that you don't feel like this guy's a little bit creepy or whatever, right? Like you want to feel welcome, and as your parents want to feel like, yeah, I can feel comfortable, because let's face it, jujitsu is some awkward positions, right? It's kind of weird. That's what my wife jokes about it all the time. She jokes in the weird way. I don't mean this in an offensive way. Hopefully it sounds funny, but my wife, she'll teach kickboxing. She walks to the gym and she just looks at me and she goes, "You're gay." And that's the part I mean to be offensive, because we have a lot of gay friends. So it is what it is. But she's just like, you guys are so weird. So she doesn't get it. But what she does get is that what I said at the beginning, we are such good friends and such a family that makes me happy. This is our happy place. And I would hope that visitors, they feel the same. And if they don't, like, we can fix it. We need, and I like what you're saying. This is a word for everybody. They should listen to your mom. They should listen to you. If you're not making somebody feel like this, you're not doing a good job. Like you need to fix it. You have to fix it. It's not about the money. It's about the perception. It's about being better for your community. It's about being better for your people in your gym and for you guys. So I love hearing that. I'm sorry to go off on that, but I just love, I'm just looking, like if I was looking for a message, that's the message, like right here, right now. When people come to your gym, go crazy. Don't be like, look, they're not coming back, let's collect their mat fee. No. Like be like learn from that. Learn, like, this person's coming in today, how can I make them comfortable? And if you can't do it, you just got to be a better person. You just got to be, like, right?
Yeah, well, and I think I'm actually, I feel like I'm kind of, our relationship kind of comes from that, right? Like the fact that me and Butch, so a quick background for you guys on me. Originally, I was training in Ohio. I had left the academy that I was at. I was kind of a nomad in the jiu-jitsu world, sort of like wandering the earth, competing when I competed and training with guys, but I was sort of not under anybody. But I'd always had good experiences with Butch. And so every time I would go to the WVGO, I would compete at his competitions. Butch was always nice, always complimenting me. Like, I would do decent in competitions. And so he would compliment me. Hey man, you look really good out there. Congratulations. None of that stuff did he have to do. It was just a little extra. And because of that, I started, I was like, man, I'm gonna go train with Butch and his guys and see what that's like down there. So I started making the trek down to West Virginia. And before I knew it, I was like, hey, I think I'm your student now, Butch. And he was like, yeah, I know. So, and so that's kind of our relationship, was from the fact that Butch was inviting, that he wasn't standoffish, that it wasn't just, this guy's competing in my he's competing in my competitions, but like that's all that he is. He's not going to be any help to me or anything like that. And because of how welcoming he was, it made it real easy for me to be a student of his and to make the trips to Charleston. So it's not a burden to go to his place, because how good I felt when I was around him, how good he made me feel, and how he invested in me when he didn't have to.
And we had a serious talk before this started. And, being older, I explained to her, I was like, you don't understand what your voice does to other people, and what you say will do to someone else. And I said, you need to make a promise to yourself that you will not speak negatively about any studio you visit. I said, there's a big difference, because we had that one negative experience. That experience was with a man who should not have been teaching. He did not have the credentials. We knew going into it what it was going to be.
It was not legitimate.
He touched her inappropriately. He elbowed her in the eye. He punched her in the face. She looked at me. I looked at her. We speak other languages, and we said something. And she was like, oh, my back, I got to go. We got out of there immediately. We don't go anywhere alone. She doesn't go anywhere alone. Her birth father is a police officer. He knows where we go. Plus, she has several celebrities who we're not naming, but she has several celebrities and several instructors and mentors who they look up places. They're like, okay, this is legit. This looks good, And one of the celebrities, whenever he saw the Jeet Kune Do thing, he was like, this doesn't look good, Mom. I want to make sure you tell me where you're at. I want you to have someone there. So, we had a long talk before we went, and we sat down as a family, and we were like, this could be a bad place, And she goes, Mom, if I don't go, I'm never going to see all aspects. I need to know every single aspect of martial arts. And, as long as I'm not in danger, we have that code. And if I throw that code, we've got to go. And we threw the code, we got out of there. But other than that, I explained to her, I said, you're going to go in places and they're going to have a bad day, or they're going to have, their instructor's going to be out and somebody's going to be there and they're not going to treat you the best because they're not trained to know how to deal with people. But it doesn't mean you get to go online or you get to slam them. You tell about the good aspects. And we've gone to places where things were a little rocky. And then we went back a week or two later because they invited us back and things were amazing, and come to find out one person had COVID, or come to find out one person, their daughter was in labor. It's things get shifty, and we understand people have bad days, and we understand studios go through a rocky time. And, you know, yeah, granted, she's just one little person in this world, but all it takes is, you know, her to say, oh, this was a really terrible place. And then word of mouth. And then you destroy martial arts. And then, you
And
know,
it's like what was said earlier, there's good and bad in life all the time. That experience with the Jeet Kune Do guy, he had good technique, wasn't a good experience. But I've had plenty of places where I've had a great experience, but that I've looked back and been like, ah, that was a little iffy, or this here. But I can't say that like iffy thing made it horrible or anything. Like, it was a good experience, but not every studio is going to be perfect for me, and nowhere's going to be perfect, of course, but there is that good and bad, and I don't ever feel the need to go online and be like, hey, this place was terrible, don't go here. I don't believe in doing that.
we notice more the differences between places than, you know, and we're more of a positive outlook. You know, we try to see the good in everything. And just because, you know, hey, they don't quite do their armbar the same way, you know, I don't like that technique. That technique is not for me, but I like this technique, but I really like their leg locks. So,
and I've certainly talked to people who they really, really don't like change, and so they try out a different instructor and they're like, oh, I don't like the way they do warm-ups. It's just different. It's just slightly different. You know, they do forward shrimps and before like the regular shrimps or something. Like, some people don't like change like that, and that's cool. But every place is going to be different. Nowhere's going to be perfect, and you know, you just got to go with it and love what you can love about it and learn from the things that you might not like yet.
So if you look at 100 studios, we've been through at least 1/4 of it. And if we can say we've only had one negative experience out of 29 studios, I think we're doing pretty good. I think it looks pretty good.
I think we've had 2 locations that were like, you know, project's a little iffy, but still not bad. They're doing what they want to do for their business.
But the way you were talking about, you know, greeting a newcomer, there's one studio that they invited us to their Christmas dinner, and we were like, you understand we didn't sign up? And they're like, no, we don't care, you're family now. And like, we were in there we watched the parade from their studio floor. And they literally, you know, they were feeding us, and they were like, this is so and so, this is, you know, this is so and so. And it's like
they had their whole families, kids playing around, and it was a wonderful experience.
It was really amazing. And that, like I said, out of 29 studios, you know, we've got one bad experience. So I think the martial arts world is looking pretty good.
I can't say that I'll be inviting you to Christmas dinner. Although if you're in High Point, maybe, I don't know. But as far as coming and training with us, absolutely, you're welcome anytime. I kind of reached out to you because I thought, and personally, I thought that what you were doing was somewhat inspirational. I've always been somebody who's traveled and done jujitsu. I've probably, maybe not 100, but certainly over 50 academies that I've trained at, maybe getting close to 100. You know, I've competed a lot, and jujitsu has always been a passion for me as far as like meeting new people and training different places and seeing different styles. And we've talked a lot about it on this podcast about it doesn't. There used to, and I don't know how much you know about jujitsu history or anything like that, but there used to be this big idea of the crianche, or the trader, and you weren't supposed to train if you started at a location. That's the only location that you were to train at. You only train under those people, and I understand why it was a thing, and I'm not going to poo-poo on it so much. I get what was going on, but here in the United States, since jiu-jitsu's been, you know, starting to spread in the United States, we're not a culture of that. You know, a lot of people cross train. I mean, even the top athletes in all professions, whether it be football or basketball, they go and train other places. You look at mixed martial artists, they don't just train at their home gym. You know, they call guys in, they fly guys in to do camps. You're not gonna be able to learn various styles and learn all of the aspects of different kinds of games if you're only doing in-house stuff. You know, if you only fish in one pond, you're only catching bass.
And I think that
And-
kind of goes back to what Butch was saying, where people walk in and they open the door and then they're like, oh no, I'm gone, because we've gone to studios like we did, that was it last night? Last night. Yeah.
We did one last
We
night.
do a lot sometimes, but we went to the one last night and there's Sabrina, the girl that she, had to
Worked
compete
with
against last year. And then when she walks in and she sees that beautiful face and she's like, oh, I feel so much better now because I know her. When we went to Triad and then we came to Motion and there's Vicky and we're like, oh my God, it's Vicky.
It's really funny to have close friends and family who aren't in martial arts, because like we said at the beginning, they're like, what do you mean this person armbarred you with your face to the mat, but you want to go see them and hug them and train with them again? Like, and they call me crazy and they pick with me, but
if
it's the joy of martial arts.
If instructors don't allow their students to, venture out, then what are they doing to themselves? Because like I said, if the student's hopping from place to place and just kind of training here and there, someone comes in that doesn't do martial arts or something, and they're like, oh no, I know that person from, we grew up together here, we went here. Then they come into the studio and they're willing to be more open to learn because they see a friendly face or a familiar face. So I don't really see how it's going to hurt you to kind of do a few open mats or let your guys go to a few other open mats.
No, well, and I think that comes from one from ego and one from just being, I'm trying to think of a nice way to put it, just being comfortable in your own skin, right? As an instructor, meaning the people that are afraid to let their quote unquote students, I say that because I hate that word, right? I always say members of my gym because we're all friends, but people that are afraid to let their members / students go somewhere else, what they're afraid of is they're not going to come back, right? So it's not that, I think it's self-doubt is what it is, right? Because they're like, hey, maybe that gym will show somebody, they'll show them something that I'm not showing them and I'm going to lose them. And so that comes out in weird ways, right? Like they don't want to say that, right? So they'll be a little angry, or they'll be a little bit standoffish. They'll say, you can't do that, you want to do this. But it really comes from a place of insecurity, meaning that they're afraid they're going to lose you because you're going to go to a place and you're like, man, that guy's better. I like the way that he instructs or she instructs, that it's a better place, blah, blah, blah. And I get it too, because I have those same feelings. We all do. We're all human, right? The problem is you have to accept those feelings. And if they're valid, you've got to make improvements. That's the bottom line. So if you hear those things and you don't want to make improvements and you say that Jordana's to blame, or, the mom's, whatever, you're like, that's not true, then it's your problem, right? Like, and that's the thing. Like, and it's funny because I'm going to tell you like a little story that has zero to do with that, but it's like, I mean, it doesn't have zero to do with that. It's just not exactly the same. But I remember we had a local gym that was writing bad reviews on Google. Like these people had never came to our gym, but I'd get a review on Google that said, I went there and place was horrible, blah, blah, blah. Like whatever. It wouldn't match up to the date or the people. There was nobody there. Half the time of the day they said there was nobody there. It's just BS. So it's like it's just a gym that their goal was to give us negative reviews or whatever. So, I sent an email out to our gym. I said, hey man, I would really appreciate if you guys gave us some positive reviews so we could fix that and get our rating back up. And then one of the reviews, of the email list was the instructions top notch, love the place. Butch and Lisa's my wife, couldn't be any better. However, the bathrooms are horrible. The showers are unclean, blah, 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 whatever. Man, I'm telling you, I got this thing and I was pissed. Like, I was like, F this person, I asked for your help and you write this thing. That's like so uncool. Right. And then I slept on it and then I woke up and I was like, they have a valid point. Like, when is the last time somebody cleaned any of that stuff? When is it, so you have to, like, even though it's going to bother you, because it also, like, way I was looking at it was, that's my reputation online, is what you're saying is my bathroom's unclean. And so that it's on there and now you're doing this, but if there's truth to it, I need to fix it. So instead of being angry, which I was, I mean, I admit, like, I'm human. I fixed the bathrooms. Like, and that was probably 5 years ago. And I continue to fix the bathrooms every day because I was like this. And the point was, what I had to think about is Gary doesn't care what my bathrooms look like, right? I mean, if you have a husband or a brother or whatever, we don't give a crap. We pee all over the floor, right? We don't care. You guys know how it is. My wife talks about it all the time. She's got a house of 4 boys. I have three sons, and me, when she walks out, walks to go to the bathroom, she's swimming in a floor of pee, right? It's not cool. It's not good. So we have a gym full of guys. We have to make sure it's clean for the cardio kickboxing class and the things that I don't think about, right? Like that guys don't care about. But the fact was, there's truth in that. And so I have to look myself in the mirror. Instead of being mad and attacking that person, I need to fix those things. And then I'm a better person. And so ultimately, I learned from that experience too. Instead of being mad, I was like, all right, listen, man, if somebody responds correctly, if there's merit into it, even a little bit, if I want to be a better person and improve upon those things and do the things that people ask of me, I've got to address those things. And even if I don't agree, I can ask other people, like, do you really think the bathrooms are awful? Well, Butch, I didn't really want to mention it, but yes, they are. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, or something where this is not, and I think people fall into that plan, like, or fall into that myth that, we're a bunch of guys and we don't care. But if somebody's at the kids class, for example, and I'm saying all the guys don't care, well, the moms care, the sisters care, the brothers care. I know I'm picking on girls right now, but people care. And you got to make those changes instead of fighting back at somebody. And just because I don't like the comment, I need to make those improvements. But anyway, that's the point. So like all those things that you're saying, I think is important because, again, these are opportunities to improve and we can do better things, all of us, right? So I appreciate, it's funny because that story, I don't even know who wrote that comment so long ago, but I think about it every day to this day. I literally do, because I'm obviously having this talk right now, like, and it put me in a crossroads, like, am I going to do better or not? And I'm proud of myself for doing better. This weekend, that comment probably, no joke, was 10 years ago. This weekend, I was in the bathroom painting and doing something because I cannot get away from that comment that was 10 years ago. It still haunts me to this day because I want to be a better person. So my point is, I love the feedback, and people should embrace the feedback. Sometimes it's uncomfortable because you got to look at yourself in the mirror and decide, do I want to fix those things? I want to be a better person. Is there merit in that? And even if I don't consider the bathroom, on my story, a bad thing, if other people do, then I need to address it. I need to fix those things. So anyway, I'm just throwing it out. I don't even know where I started on that, Gary. So you can help me out. Been drinking too much moonshine. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think the thing that I like about even traveling students, people that I know aren't going to be regular students at the academy. We've got people who come from across the town, like High Point's got, the High Point area has quite a few jiu-jitsu schools, and we've got people who cross train and come to our open mats from the other schools. And the thing that I think that I take from that the most is I want to make sure that I'm creating an environment for learning and brotherhood, and all of the other good stuff will come off of that. And I feel like I've kind of do that in life. I try and be good to people. I try and do the right thing. If I see somebody who needs help, I try and help them. And it doesn't matter if it's how to do an arm bar or a scissor sweep, or if it's, hey, I really can't pick up this heavy thing, and I'm a big ox looking guy and I've got dumb muscles, so I use them when I can if it helps people out. And I think all the good stuff comes off of that. And I think I'm sure that you guys kind of see that or feel that as well when you go to these academies. Luckily, it's been my experience, and it sounds like for the most part your experience, that it is a place where people are inviting. Jiu-jitsu is a place where community and doing good for your fellow person is the paramount thing. I know that I like new interactions with new people, and so every new student is another interaction that I get to have. It's another friend that I possibly might make. And I don't know if the next person who walks through the door is going to be my best friend for 30 years or somebody I meet today and we have a pleasant exchange and I never see him again. But what I do know is I'm going to give them both the same opportunity, regardless of what the outcome is in 10 years. They both still get the initial opportunity. Like, man, I'm Gary Hashman, and I really like jujitsu, and it seems like you're interested. I want to teach you as much as I can, and if you want to be here, let's do this. So I think. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that sounds a lot like what I've tried to teach my kids. My grandparents were Appalachian people. They were very simple people, and they had a way of saying, in this life, you have one name, and that's the only name you'll ever have, and it's up to you whether or not you make it a good one. And you get back what you put out, and you treat a janitor the same way you treat a doctor, the same way you treat a lawyer, the same way you treat a homeless man. And that's what I've kind of stressed with my kids is you don't know who you meet today, who that person will be 20 years from now. And when you go to these places, you treat everyone with respect. And, if these studios want to come back and ask her later on, hey, is there anything, that you would change about the way our studio is? Did you have any, compliments or anything negative or whatever? She'd be more than happy to say, well, hey, your seating area was a little bit this, or, but that takes a humble person too, to kind of say, hey, what would you change about our studio? Well, I have a 4-year-old little sister and there was no place for her to wash her hands, or, it could be something else,
That kind of makes me think about something I heard on the radio one time, where they said sometimes even very small gestures to you can be huge things to the person you said it to. And I like to think about that a lot more since I heard it. It makes me think about how my actions will affect others and how theirs affect like me as well.
And that was to Butch's point, that comment, he could build the studio up, and then all it took was, your bathrooms are a little nasty. And, in Butch's brain now, that has been engraved, and he'll never forget that. That goes back to what I told her and what we decided when we go to these studios. We're not going to bash a studio because they had a bad day, because all it takes is that one little quote, and you don't know what that does to a person, especially if you take someone that's their livelihood. They've been in that studio for 40 years. That's that's the only thing they really care about. And then you've just caused them all this emotional trauma, and they're going to start doubting themselves, just because they had a bad day and you just happened to walk in on a bad day.
It's like those small comments can make or break someone's attitude on what you commented on.
Yeah.
The small comments really are huge.
But then you go back to, what Butch was saying, you walk into a studio and you see 4 or 5 guys without shirts on. Well, I guess we're kind of desensitized, because I was the only girl in my studio years ago. And I was fighting cops and military men, and it wasn't any different for me. I walked in, I knew I was safe. I knew I was going to be okay. I didn't have to deal with any of the sexism or anything like that. So for me, if I walk in and guys are taking their shirts off, the only thing I'm thinking is, oh, they're sweaty. I'm like, oh, don't touch me, you're sweaty.
Like,
and same with her, because she'll be like, well, I was rolling with so and so and I put my arm in their gi, and it was just like,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm the sweaty guy. I know. I'm sorry.
She knows, she knows how it goes, and she realizes that that's a thing. So, but that's, you think about, if somebody had never done martial arts before and they walk in, they see a bunch of guys walking around and their shirts are off, and, they could kind of be like, oh, is this the place for me? So, I mean, I get that too. So you do want to have that representation of, we are a family friendly. We're not trying to intimidate and all that other,
We're not here to knock your lights out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. I know you guys probably got to get going. I do want to ask, where are you guys headed next? What's the next academy that you have on your schedule?
So we have like 18.
We have like 18
we have
lined
like,
up.
We have like 100 down, but there's a bunch of places. There's one in Galax we're wanting to visit, because it's a
Family
female,
and-
it's a female instructor and an owner. And that was one of the things that I would like to touch on, is that we have not seen a lot of female instructors, and she's really pushing, wanting to have she wants to be a strong female role model, not only for the kids that she's taught, but for kids in the future and females in the future. And because, you know, she has faced a bit of the sexism, and she kind of wants to break that. And I have to give a shout out to Michael Allen for this one, because the first time I ever saw it addressed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was he came into the class and he was like, look, guys, I'm going to put it out there. You do anything inappropriate to any of my girls and you will be gone. And I'm not going to tell you you're going out the door. You know, in other words, I'm going to toss you out. And for her, having already experienced it, she was
it was a very meaningful thing to see someone stand up for females.
and we've noticed that that's more of what's going on in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is that you don't have that sexism. We have not seen it since that one bad experience. And all the studios we've been to, you know, she's rolled with guys, and if something happens, they're just like, I'm so sorry. Are you, you know, she's like, no, you're good.
There's a wonderful amount of respect between both genders on both sides in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
And she'll tell me, you know, if she has a bad experience, she'll tell me. But so far with Jiu-Jitsu, it's been, you know, with all the studios, it's been really good. She's like, Mom, they're very respectful. I don't feel weird. They don't make it weird. And that was a really great thing about that. So we're wanting to try to see if there's more of the female owners and female instructors too, just to kind of, you know, because there's a lot of males. So she's kind of like, would like to be around that. So we're going to go see a lady in Galax. But I think our very next one, to get back on topic, is going to be in Winston-Salem, and it's Taekwondo.
All right. Well, Butch, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, no. Well, I was going to say a couple of things real quick. Is first, I was going to ask you earlier about Michael Allen, just randomly, because a long time ago they reached out to me about affiliation, and I was just going to bring that name up if because that's, you said Checkmat several times. Do they still Checkmat, Michael Allen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Charlotte.
I was going to act like I was smart and name drop, and you did it for me. So props to him. And I think it is a beautiful thing looking for some women. I do know that Checkmat has some people that are women, but last I knew they were in LA, because I used to have, my job was in LA. So it doesn't really help you, but what I also, go ahead.
Instructors at Checkmat. There's Jillian I can't say her name.
Jillian Schnitzler.
And
It's changed.
there,
That sounds like a German name.
she
Polish?
married, it was Jillian Chalk.
Oh,
And
okay.
got married, but she's got a Queen's class there, and several female instructors that are just top notch. So, you know, she's been blessed to have a lot of female role models that are very strong.
Yeah, and what I was going to say before Gary, takes us home is, you guys are always welcome. I was joking about the West Virginia thing, just try to be funny. I don't know if I'm ever funny. I try, but you guys are welcome here. It's only 3 hours away. We do not have a female instructor. However, if you do come, I will make sure that our females are there and they and take care of you. And I would be honored to have you. What I was going to say too is that I think I roundabout said it, but I want to say this, Jordana, your mom is amazing. She, and I know you don't probably want to hear kind of stuff like that. It's kind of weird. I just hope that I could do half as good a job as she has. So it's awesome. So I appreciate that. That's awesome.
She's 10 out of 10. Would recommend. I can vouch for this one.
Perfect for a young lady to say.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you again for coming on. I'm so happy that I reached out to you after I seen your TikTok videos. Keep on doing it. I can't wait to see the whole 100 list on there, and I'm happy that you chose us to be one of the places that you stopped by. Always welcome. So just give me a holler and let me know you're coming in so I can make sure I'm in that class. All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Thanks again, Butch. I love you. And everybody have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys.
All right. Have a good night. I appreciate you guys.